So this video is divided into 5 parts: roadside tourist traps, lookouts, rocks, lakes and other miscellaneous attractions. Most of these locations are from the Wheatbelt and surrounding regions, as that's where I live and work, and I'm only including places I've been to on this list. I'm also going to put a link to all the locations of these places in the description of the video if you want to check any of them out for yourself. And a lot of these places have Aboriginal names, so chances are I'm going to pronounce a few of them wrong. Part 1. Roadside tourist traps. The Wagen giant ram. The Wagen giant ram is the world's second largest sheep, and it was built in 1985. It's 9 meters tall and weighs 4 tons. It's made out of fiberglass on a steel frame. It's located near the centre of town. The biggest sheep in the world is in Goulburn, New South Wales, and it is 15 metres tall. This was also built in 1985. The Beverley Vampire Jet. Located near the centre of Beverley is a vampire jet which has been put up on display. There are also some of the remains of the landing gear of the Amana, a Douglas DC-4 Skymaster plane that crashed near York, the next town over, in 1950. There was only one survivor of the 29 passengers on board, and he died 6 days after the crash. The Tin Horse Highway. The Tin Horse Highway is a display of horses made out of scrap metal, usually oil drums, that goes on for about 15 k's along the Coolin Lake Grace Road. There is probably over 100 tin horses along this stretch of road, and some of them are pretty funny. There's even one sitting on the dunny. The Kojonup Giant Wagon. This giant wagon is a replica of the wagons that were used to transport wool before the days of motor vehicles. This replica is made out of steel with fiberglass wool crates. It is located near the centre of town along Albany Highway. This, however, is not the world's biggest wagon, as there is a bigger one in Illinois in the US, but it's probably the world's biggest wool wagon. The Darren Tin Dogs. Darren is the location of 2 tin dogs. The reason for the tin dogs is because Tin Dog Creek runs through Darren. It is named that because in the pioneer days, prospectors left a lot of empty tin cans, which were nicknamed Tin Dog. Now I'm not sure if by that they meant it tasted like dog food or if it tasted like dog. Walcatcham CBH Museum. The Walcatcham CBH Museum is one of the biggest agricultural museums in WA and has a lot of farm machinery amongst other things. And there are even some very rare cars in there too. Half of the museum is inside an old wheat bin and is located near the centre of town. If you can't pronounce the name Walcatcham, just call it Wiley. The world's largest camera. Meckering is home to the world's largest camera, which is also a photography museum inside. But I've never been inside it, as it always seems to be closed, or when it is open, I didn't have any time to go inside. It's on the side of Great Eastern Highway. I'll talk more about Meckering later on in this video. The Cuberling Machinery Display. In Cuberling, alongside the Great Southern Highway, there is a machinery display with some old machinery and trucks, one being an ex-army Chev Blitz. At the entrance of the town, on both sides along the highway, are 2 horses made out of horseshoes. Menzies Machinery Display. The Menzies Machinery Display is located near the centre of town. They have some very old stuff, including a truck that was converted to run on wood gas. This was a popular thing to do in the wartime when there were government fuel rations. The Brookton Machinery Display. In Brookton, in the centre of town, is a display of farm machinery, and about a kilometre east of this, there's a giant fiberglass horse with some old wagons. The Southern Cross Machinery Display. The last of the machinery displays on this list. This one is combined with a lookout at the top of the hill. One of the structures you can climb up and look over the highway. The Kunderan Pub. The Etamoga Pub is located in the centre of town. It's a replica of the pub in the Etimoga cartoons. There is another one in Kellyville Ridge in New South Wales. There is also a biplane on a pole on the other side of town. On Great Eastern Highway there is the Pump Station Museum, which is part of the C.Y. O'Connor pipeline. The Geraldton HMAS Sydney 2 Memorial. The HMAS Sydney 2 Memorial was built in honour of the HMAS Sydney 2, a ship that was sunk on the 19th of November in 1941 by a German ship off the coast of WA near Geraldton in World War II. One interesting thing about this memorial is that the statue of the woman looking out to sea is pointed exactly to the degree where the ship lies. This was not known at the time of the memorial's construction, as a wreck of the Sydney was not found until 2008. In the Narrogin train station. Located on Great Southern Highway, there is an old train that has been put on display at the Narrogin train station. It's an XA1415 model for anyone who's into trains. Part 2. Lookouts. The thing about lookouts is that photos, no matter how good they are, will still never be as good as being there in real life. The Northern Lookout. Located at the top of Mount Omani, this lookout looks out over the town and looks great at night too. The Cunderen Hill Lookout. This lookout is located just on the edge of town and looks out over the town. The York Lookout. This lookout is located on the top of Mount Brown. From the top you get a 360-degree view of the town of York and the surrounding farmland. There is also a public barbecue there. There is also a good motor museum in York with some rare cars. Mount Dale Lookout. This lookout is located at the top of Mount Dale. The scenery is just amazing, and this is my favourite lookout on this list. These photos just do not do it justice. Last time I was there was a washboard road leading to it, as it wouldn't have been graded for a while, but still easily drivable in a two-wheel drive car. Laverton Leonora Road Lookout. I don't know the name of this lookout, and I couldn't seem to find it online, but it's well worth putting on this list. You get a 360-degree view of all the surrounding scenery, and it's just on the side of the road. Grigson's Lookout. This lookout is just on the side of Indian Ocean Drive near Jurien Bay. You get a 360-degree view of all the surrounding bush. It was originally built by surveyors in 1875. Part 3. Rocks. The Pinnacles, Cervantes. The Pinnacles are a rock formation of lots of sandstone outcrops. It's located a few kilometres south of Cervantes along Indian Ocean Drive. Unfortunately, you have to pay to see them, and at the time of writing this, it costs $15 per vehicle. This is a very popular tourist attraction, so there is usually a large crowd, but it's a pretty big area, so if you want to walk off the main tracks, it'll be a lot less crowded. Boulder Rock. Located on the side of Brookton Highway is Boulder Rock. These days it's closed to the public and has been for the last few years, but it's just too good to not put on this list. Yorkine Rock. Located halfway between Walcatcham and Tannum is Yorkine Rock. According to the Aboriginal culture, this is a woman's place and men aren't allowed to go there. Frog Rock. Located near Marble Lock is Frog Rock. It's called Frog Rock because there are a lot of frogs that live in the rock pools there in the winter time. It's a pretty underrated tourist attraction in my opinion. Wave Rock. Located near Hyden is Wave Rock. As you can see, it looks like a wave, and people like to take pictures of themselves pretending to surf it. You have to pay to go see this rock, and you even have to pay to park there. And they have parking inspectors who give out fines. Don't ask me how I know. But it is an amazing looking rock, and is still definitely worth going. This rock is said to be on the same line as Yorpine Rock according to Aboriginal culture. The stromatolites Cervantes. The stromatolites are located in Lake Fetus, just out of Cervantes. These might just look like rocks, but they are meant to be the oldest form of life that has survived to this day. There are a few other places in Western Australia where you can see stromatolites too. You're not meant to step on the stromatolites as they are alive and can only grow 5 centimetres every 100 years. Balaji Rock. This rock is right on the edge of a salt lake and you can get a great view from the top of it. Probably one of the best rocks on this list, in my opinion. Part 4. Lakes and Salt Lakes. Lake Dumbleyung. This is the biggest freshwater lake in WA. It is also the location Donald Campbell set his water speed record on the 31st of December 1964 in the boat Bluebird. He clocked 445 kilometres per hour. There is a replica of this boat in the centre of town. There is also a lookout at Pussycat Hill where you can look out over the lake. Lake Grace. Located just out of the town of Lake Grace, on Lake Grace Dumbleyung Road, is Lake Grace. Obviously the town is named after the lake. In the wet, when it floods, it can look spectacular. Lake Seabrook. Located near Southern Cross is Lake Seabrook. You're not really meant to go here, but it's one of the best salt lakes I've seen, so I just had to put it on this list. Lake Moore. This is one of the biggest salt lakes in Western Australia, located just south of Paynes Find. It's over 100 kilometres long at its widest part. Of some parts of it, you can't see the edge of the lake as it disappears into the horizon. Because this lake is so big, there are a lot of different locations you can view it from, and some are better than others. Some are also pretty hard to get to. Lehman Salt Lakes. Located just next to the town of Lehman is the Lehman Salt Flats. As you can see, you can drive a car onto this lake. However, it is not recommended, especially in the wet. This is because you can easily get bogged, especially in a 2-wheel drive Hyundai Sonata. And no, I didn't get bogged that time. Part 5. Miscellaneous Attractions. The Kalgoorlie Super Pit. Located right next to town is the Kalgoorlie Super Pit. It was until recently the biggest open cut mine in Australia and is still one of the biggest in the world, and apparently it can be seen from space. There is also a machinery display of old mine vehicles at this location too. Meckering. On the 14th of October 1968, Meckering was struck by an earthquake measuring 6.9 on the Richter scale. These days, in the centre of town, you can see some of the remains of the earthquake, including a section of Bent Railway and a section of the C.Y. O'Connor pipeline that was damaged by the quake. A bit out of town you can see the fault line and also the remains of the Salisbury homestead that was destroyed in the quake. The rabbit-proof fence. This is the longest fence in the world, stretching 1,834 k's from the north coast of Western Australia down to the south coast, and it can be seen in various places across WA. It was built in 1901 to keep introduced rabbits that were over on the east of the country to stay out of the good farmland in WA. There was a movie made in 2002 called Rabbit Proof Fence, where in 1931 3 Aboriginal girls that the government had taken from their family escaped and walked home to Jigalong from Moore River along this fence. It was based on a true story. The C.Y. O'Connor pipeline. Officially, this is known as the Golden Pipeline, but my whole life living in Western Australia, it seems to always get called either the C.Y. O'Connor pipeline or the Kalgoorlie pipeline. This pipeline, at the time of its construction, was the longest pipeline in the world and also the most expensive project in the Commonwealth at the time. It starts at Mundown Weir in Perth and goes out to Kalgoorlie. For a lot of its length, it runs parallel to the Great Eastern Highway. C.Y. O'Connor, the man who made it, committed suicide by shooting himself in the head only 3 weeks before the day it started working. Gwalia Ghost Town. The ghost town of Gwalia is located just south of Leonora. It was abandoned when the Sons of Gwalia mine closed up on the 28th of December 1963. It is really an amazing place to go, as it is still how it was left in 1963. There is also a museum there, which I never have been inside due to COVID restrictions being enforced at the time I was there in 2020. New Norcia. New Norcia is a monastic town, which means it's run by the monastery. It was founded in 1847 and has a lot of historic buildings built in Spanish style. There is also a museum there too. Perth. Perth is the capital of Western Australia, and I could do a whole write-up just on Perth. Some of the good places to visit in Perth are Fremantle, where they have a historic jail and also the markets. And Frere also has a pretty good nightlife on a Friday or Saturday night. Perth Stadium, which is currently called Optus Stadium due to a sponsorship deal, is one of the country's best sports grounds and is used for both footy and cricket, and occasionally other things too. The CBD, or Central Business District, has a lot of attractions too, including Elizabeth Quay and the Bell Tower.